Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Future is Bilingual. My name is Heather, and I'm very, very excited for today's episode. And I don't say that lightly. I know I say that often, but this interview I'm about to do, I've been planning for at least 2 years. It's finally happening, and I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Ute. So, Ute, please tell us about yourself, the languages that you speak, and then we'll get into all the details.
Thank you very much, Heather, first of all, for inviting me and for this interview to happen. So my name is Ute Limacher-Riebold. I'm a multilingual language and communication consultant for internationals and mainly for multilingual families who live abroad.
And how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for more than 11 years now.
Wow, mashallah, that's beautiful. This is why I wanted Uta on the show, y'all. Now you know. She's the expert. And I'm so glad you said your full name and you didn't make me say your full name. So I will put it in the show notes. Those of you who, speak these languages, it probably was like, yeah, of course, that's a normal name. But for me, I don't, I share some languages with Uta. So Uta, tell us, what languages do you speak?
So I do speak German, well, English, as you can say, tell, then Italian, French, Dutch, a little bit of Spanish, some dialects of Swiss German as well,
Mhm.
and several Swiss German dialects. I understand.
Wait, there's
I
more
can
than one?
reproduce them. There are several, yes.
I thought it was just
And I
one. Oh
no
my
no
God. Okay, I
no
just learned something. My mind is blown right now.
no
I literally thought Swiss German was its own dialect and like in one.
no. There are different Swiss German speaking cantons in Switzerland, and they each have their own dialect and sometimes even two or so. So
Wow. And
there
such
are
a
many of
like,
them.
and like Switzerland is like relatively small. It already has four languages. Like, how do they make this many dialects in such a small region? It's amazing.
It is amazing, yes, and it's also amazing to know that sometimes even in the Swiss German, for example, speaking part, some don't understand a certain Swiss German dialect,
Mm,
so they need almost subtitles, or they really need to get
yeah.
very concentrated in order to be able to follow what the other
Hmm.
person is saying, because they have different words for things and a different pronunciations, and you need a little bit flexibility in
That
that.
makes
And I think
sense.
I
I,
really like that.
I can relate because as an American, sometimes watching like an Irish movie or a movie from like, Wales or even like England, like certain dialects, I can use subtitles. Like that's helpful because sometimes I miss like what did they say? What is that different? There's so many different words. So it's like, it's both, they're all English. But
Mhm.
yeah, like sometimes the dialect is so different or the accent is, so heavy. And like same for, I know a lot of people say like if they are watching like a Western movie and it's like that Southern American drawl and like they're like, I don't understand that American accent. Like totally, there's very different ways of pronouncing things that can make it, you're just not used to it, right? So
Yes,
that makes sense. Okay. I just
absolutely.
had no idea. And I'm going to dive right into the Swiss German because we're on it and it's fascinating to me. Um, I know that you've mentioned, and I've heard other people mention that there's not a lot written in Swiss German. Is that because there's multiple, like dialect to not, there's not like one? So like, is that possibly one of the reasons, or is it more that just like publishing happens in like German, or I mean, what is what's the
Mhm.
deal there?
Yes, yes, it is partly because of the reason that you just mentioned. So there are so many different dialects. I mean, they have poets, for example, who publish poems in the different regional variants, but it's not that you can read the newspaper in the different variants. The
Oh.
newspapers are written in the Swiss German, the standard Swiss German.
Hmm.
So there is a conventional Swiss German that you would use in formal settings at
Hmm.
school as well. And yes, that you can read in newspapers and also in books. I mean, there are many authors, also Swiss German authors, and they would just write in the Swiss German German.
Hmm.
So they have uh, different words with different meanings that compared to the German in Germany or the German in Austria or in Liechtenstein, etc. So
Hmm.
you can recognize the Swiss German standard German.
Hmm. Wow,
Mhm.
that is very cool. It kind of reminds me how Arabic has like a standard language and like,
Yes.
that's what the news is written in and things like that.
Yeah.
But and even like I was thinking like Italy, like people don't know how many and they're not even really dialects. Like people say dialects, but they're like proper languages that are, existing in the country of Italy, and they're sometimes not even related to like standard Italian, and sometimes they're closer. And I mean, it's like so much, the more like you go deep, the more you see like there's more layers, there's more languages. And like even I know that's becoming, it has at least been becoming more popular. Just in Europe, like the regional languages. I know France was trying to like have schools that teach like Breton. When I was living in Brittany, they had schools for that. Occitan, just like, the different like Alsacien, like the right near Germany. Like there's different movements, thank goodness, recognizing the importance of these regional languages and regional dialects. But it's just like, if you don't know, you don't know. Like I don't know anything about German or Switzerland. I have not been there yet. It's on my list. So, inshallah, one day. It was a trip, my high school. I took trips with a high school I was teaching at to like Spain and France and even Japan. And then 2 years later, they went to Switzerland for the French trip, but I was pregnant and I was like, no. That was like when I was pregnant with my son. So I didn't go, and they were like eating amazing chocolate, and I was so jealous. And I was like, I wish I could be there. And then it just never happened since. So hopefully one day, inshallah. S-
Yes. You
Ute,
have.
where did you grow up? Because we've mentioned all these languages. How did you learn all these languages?
So I grew up in Italy. My parents were both German,
Hmm.
and they moved there after having been in Belgium and other places. But anyways, I grew up in Italy. German parents. I went to a European school in the German section, so I started learning Italian from day one, so to say, because we were immersed into
Hmm.
Italian. No one would speak German in that region. It was in the Lombardy. It's not where
Hmm.
you have also a German Italian bilingual part in
Yeah.
Italy, but it's not where I grew up. So I grew up with Italian and German, and then I learned French at school at age 6 when I
Oh,
was
nice.
6.
Nice and
And
young. That's great.
yes, and then English when I was 11. I also learned Swiss German passively or receptively when I
Hmm.
was 4 or 5 years old, because there was a Swiss German TV channel that we
Really?
could capture there just for a year. They did a test, and I was allowed to watch a show about animals and all kind of things. That I was fascinated by animals, still am,
Hmm.
and so I learned Swiss German thanks to this TV show.
Wow. So you already spoke German thanks to your parents. So
Yes,
what was it like picking up Swiss German? Is it very close
it
or
is
is it very
close.
different?
It is close. It is like a regional variant
Hmm.
of German. And I mean, my mom also, where she grew up, they also had a regional German, a variant in Hessen. That's a part of Germany, and she used also to every now and then throw in some words and sentences
Mm.
in that version of German. Of course, she said, "Well, it's not going to help you here abroad. I mean, no one else was speaking it, but I think it allowed me to understand that there are many variants, many different ways of speaking German, and that
Hmm.
also those who are considered very or are minoritized uh, variants of the standard language are also valuable,
Hmm.
because my grandma was able to speak it, and we I tried to learn a little bit, although my mother said, oh, you don't have to bother. But it was funny because later, when I studied Italian and French literature and linguistics, I discovered the different variants in France, like you just said, and
Hmm.
in Italy, and then also in Germany. So I was like reconfirmed in my curiosity to dig a little bit deeper to explore these languages, because all these regional variants, they are so rich in
Yeah.
certain terms that you cannot find in the standard language.
Yeah, that's
They're
true.
much richer. They give much more color to the languages. And in the end, the standard languages we have now, at least here in Europe, they are all constructs. They were all decided by
Yeah.
people so that everyone can understand, everyone that the school system, everyone who goes to school will learn the same kind of language.
They
So
picked one. They picked one of the many to
one,
put on a pedestal, but there was not like a rhyme or reason why
no,
this
no,
one, you know? So,
absolutely.
and I think you're so right that like even when you learn just one phrase, like I don't speak a lick of Turkish. I had Turkish. I was teaching ESL to Turkish students, and all I learned was like to say thank you,
Yeah.
which I don't even remember. But like, there was a post that had like in Turkish, we don't say this, we say this. And it just had like four examples. But I was like, this is so beautiful. Like when you translate literally the things that they say versus what
Mhm.
we say in English. And I know there's like lots of posts with Arabic, there's lots of posts with lots of languages about this. You, like you said, it makes your mind think, oh, you
Mhm.
know, we could just say, for example, welcome, many languages, right? I think German, like welcome or something. It's like similar, welcome, or I don't. But like in Arabic, it's like, you know, ahlan wa sahlan is like you're part of ahlan is like family. And like
Mhm.
be at ease, like sah, like to be comfortable. Like I want you to be like part of my family and feel comfortable. Or like the mi casa, su casa, like my house is your house. Like even just learning all of these like colorful ways to
Yeah.
say it, but like it changes your mind because, like, oh yeah, when I welcome someone in my house, I want them to feel comfortable. I want them to feel at home. I want them to feel like they're part of, you know, like they're not like a foreigner, like, you know, a stranger who we want to like get out as quickly as we can, right? So
Mhm.
there's so many ways, right? There's not like one way. It's not a math equation. Like there's many ways to say the same thing, but
Yeah.
say it differently, actually,
Yeah.
because it does change. I think I've
Yes.
noticed that myself. Like if I say one thing in one language, but I feel like no, it's stronger in this language. I'd rather say it this way, or I just like the way it sounds better, or whatever
Yeah.
the case may be. And I think that's the beauty of knowing even just two languages, right? You have this back and forth of like, oh, in English, you know, my kids like we say this in English, but we say this in Polish. Like, yeah, there's like, you know, it's different. Different languages say things differently. And
Yes.
that's such a beautiful, like, it's not taking anything away, it's adding, just adding more, you know.
Yeah.
It's like
More.
a garden that has one flower is beautiful, but a garden that has like lots of different flowers or lots of different colors is like more beautiful, right? It's just adding to our
Yes.
worldview.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so the German and Swiss German are pretty close.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of all your languages. Okay, so you said Italian, German was at the same time.
Yes.
Okay. Then you had French added in. Was there like, I guess you were young. Do you remember one language being like harder or one like being very easy? Like, oh, this language, like I know when I picked up Italian, it was after French and Spanish, and I was like, "Pff, this is a breeze. Like, this is so simple. I can like already read, you know, versus like I had been like struggling with Polish. There was nothing similar for
Mhm.
you know, like the languages I already spoke to Polish. And like
Mhm.
same with I tried Korean by myself, like so different, you know, like every word was a struggle. Grammar is a struggle. The pronunciation was the struggle. Arabic, same thing. Like I still feel like I'm reading children's books and I can't understand it. And it's like many, many, many years in university and like it's still such a struggle. So like and in all of these languages you spoke, you know, did you have difficulties or things? Did you find you were so young, so maybe not. Maybe you absorbed it.
Yes, and it was at school. It was clear we go into that classroom and we learn French, and it was everything in French. And I mean, it was taught in a way that we started pretty early to talk. So it was not grammar and then talking. It was really
Oh.
immediately saying something. And I remember that the teacher barely corrected us. She just let us speak
Mm.
and explore the language in the way we wanted. And there were like, some stories with a dog and children. So it was really, I found it was fun. And
Hmm.
I never had this impression that I need to access that new language through the others that I have. Like today, it's done very often in school, and everyone is talking about translanguaging and etc. But I think we can learn a new language even at a very early stage, but also later by just immersing into it and concentrating on that new language and trying to figure out how it works. And so I
Hmm.
approached every language that I've learned so far in this way. So of course I have also the other languages that can help me. And sometimes you think, oh, that sounds like in Italian, this one, or it sounds like the German here, or the syntax structure is very similar to that other language that I know, but it's not something that I really have to point out or to write down or to
Mm.
talk about.
Yeah.
It's more on a subconscious level, and maybe it comes a little bit into the foreground, but it mainly the way I have learned the languages and also Latin. I mean, I also learned Old Provençal and Old French that
Oh.
are also dead languages.
Hmm.
No one speaks them anymore. You speak a little bit Occitan, and Catalan is similar to the Old Catalan, but
Hmm.
still, even those languages, I just try to understand how they work. What are the patterns? What can I recognize and what makes sense? And can I understand what is written or what is said?
Hmm.
To what extent? So that kind of approach is rather mine. So
Hmm. Well, I
I
think, yeah, you're speaking to my language teacher brain of like the immersive. You're very lucky you had an immersive teacher, and especially at the young age. I think that's like the best way to go about it, and at the older ages as well. But of course, there's more challenges, and I think, it's definitely a balance. I see it with my students. I'm teaching like very beginners, and sometimes they do need to like write it down and translate, like they need to have that like English to their language just
Mm,
for themselves to be like, is this the correct word? And I think I don't discourage that at all. And my classes are in English because I have multiple languages and I cannot speak Swahili, so I can't help them, like I have to like not speak French to the French speakers because it wouldn't be fair. And like not speak, Spanish. I'm like, nope, nope. Like they want me to, and I'm like, no, I can't speak to you because like I can't help, the speakers of other languages. So, to have them all together and like I have to be very visual and like show what I mean and like pull up a picture if I have to because it's, like you have to reach that broad audience. But for myself as well, I've used that natural method with Polish, with Italian. So I think, maybe it's not for everyone. Maybe some people they really want to have that one-to-one, but
mm,
I think many people get trapped and like use it as a crutch and then they're stuck translating. Like they'll say it, to themselves in their language and then try to translate it. And that's when it comes out really funny
mm,
and not natural. So I think, as a language teacher, as someone who likes to learn, like I also definitely go towards that like natural method.
mm, mm,
But it's hard. I mean, like, I listen to like a podcast for kids in Arabic, and I'm like, oh my God, I understand like a few words, like every sentence. I'm like, I know one word, I know one, and like, what's happening? What is happening in this story? So it's
yes.
like, it's very hard if the languages are very different. With like Italian, I'm like, I can listen to the whole thing and like, yep, I know exactly what he said, the whole thing. Like, there was like a few new words, and I figured them out by context because of my other languages that
Yes.
helped. So I think it's like, balancing that is tricky. And
I
like
do.
you studied Korean as well, right? Like so like Korean is a whole nother world. Like I could hear people speaking Korean and it could be the most basic sentence and I would still be like, "What?" Like so.
Yes, that's in fact something that I struggled with. I mean, a part of the script being completely different from what I'm used to because I mainly know European languages. I learned a little bit to decipher, to decode Greek,
Mm,
but that's ages ago, so I would have to
revisit.
retrieve it
Yeah.
in a very old box in my brain somewhere. It's very much hidden, I think. But yes, for Korean, for example, or also for Japanese or Chinese, because my son started to learn Japanese and Chinese,
Wow.
and he told me about what he was learning, and I was trying to figure out how to make sense of it and how to reproduce what he was saying. And then, of course, I made mistakes, which was funny. It's
Uh-huh.
always is
I'm
funny,
sure he loved
but
that.
yes, of course. No, but he's very kind. No, and very patient with me. So but yes, with certain languages that are, I think, more distant from the languages I already know, it requires a lot more of effort, of course.
Hmm.
But I still tried with Korean. I also tried the same approach I had with my other languages. For example, also Dutch. When we moved here in 2005, I had a little bit of a knowledge of Dutch, mainly swear words, which did not help as an
Nope,
adult. I
that doesn't
learned them
serve
when I
you.
was a teenager, and that was a while ago. But there as well, I tried to learn Dutch by immersion. So
Hmm.
by repeating what people were saying in the shops. Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
repeating, oh, she said that one. I will try to say the same. And
That takes
by,
focus though, because I
yes,
do that as well. Like I would listen to my Polish friends speak to their
yeah,
kids, but I had to really focus. Like,
yeah,
what did she say, and what was the case ending that she used on that word? Like I was like so hyper focused on like,
yeah,
what did they say? How did they say it? Like I'm gonna try saying that, but then keeping that all in your brain. Like, I mean, this is why bilingualism is so healthy for your brain. Like it's
yeah,
literally like lifting weights. It's
yes. But, you know, in my brain, although I have this linguistic part that I always find fascinating, but that didn't kick in at that point
Mm,
because I was really trying to be like a child and to just mimic, to just repeat what other people are saying without thinking, okay, that is the verb and there is a
hmm,
noun and that is the ending. I really try to leave that aside and
yeah,
concentrate on how can I reproduce with the intonation, with the accent, with everything, what the other person is saying, just to sound
natural.
understandable or
Yeah.
natural in some way. And then I learned also alongside my son, I learned the children's songs and nursery rhymes and everything. And we read books and he would correct me. And that was amazing because that, of course, it helped him also to become much more confident
Hmm.
in learning the language as well. But yes, with Korean or Japanese and Chinese, for me, it's really just behind plexiglass window.
Mm,
I am not that in touch with those languages yet. If
mm,
I would have more time, maybe I will make more time to learn them
yeah.
and to practice them a little bit more. But what I noticed there, that there always comes a moment where, for example, when I watch some series, I start understanding by the way they express themselves, so the
Hmm.
nonverbal cues, the situation that you see on screen, and then also the words then come in and I say, oh yeah, I understand a
Yeah.
few parts of it. And then now he said water, now they said telephone, or they said
Hmm.
something else. So there are little glimpses of knowledge or understanding that at some point they make sense, and
Yeah.
then you start understanding more. Then maybe at that point, at least for me, comes the moment where I want to know, okay, how is the syntax structure? Where is the verb? Where is the adjective? Do they have pronouns? Don't have pronouns,
Hmm.
but they have a very formal and informal kind of language depending on who is speaking with whom,
Hmm.
and or who is saying that it's a brother, it's the older brother, the younger brother is a different
Yep.
word, or older sister, younger sister, etc. So these kind of things that I don't know or that are not so familiar in the other languages I know, because we
Hmm.
have pronouns and we do not differentiate
By
if
age.
it's an older brother or a
Yep.
younger brother, or a person that is older than I or not. um, then these new things of the language, I find them more challenging, but also, again, very interesting, and I like to learn them.
Yeah. No, I know I had to teach my group of new incoming, newly arrived people in the US, like we don't use the words like auntie and uncle for like anyone except my family. Like it has to be my dad's sister and
Yes.
not like any woman in the street, because it's so common in many cultures to be like auntie, uncle, and I'm like, no, no, we don't say that. Like you can say it, but like people will be confused, like
Be,
legitimately.
yeah. Say
And
we're not related.
yeah, like who are you? I don't even know you. And yeah, it's just like very confusing.
Yeah.
But I find Korean so fascinating in that like the first question you ask is like, how old are you? And then you place yourself like, I'm older, you're younger, or I'm old, younger, whatever the situation is. I think it's
Yeah,
just
which
so different from what we know. And you touched on something super important, which is like drama, TV, watching movies, anything where like you can see the culture because I like if I heard you right, you said like you observe
yeah.
what's happening culturally before you get into like nitty gritty, the grammar. Why is this added? Why is this like honorific? Like what's the difference between the hamnida versus the yo versus the nothing? Like that is like so, and it's the same thing you said when you went to the Netherlands. Like you just kind of observed people. Like how do they talk? What kind of facial expressions, gestures. I
Hmm.
think that's like such the natural, right? That's what kids, they literally observe
Yes.
who's talking to who, how do they talk, like we see kids, there's always like the stereotype of the Italian hand gesture, but like many cultures, the hand gestures are
Yes.
like so different from culture to culture. And you see kids will do them because they're watching their adult people in their lives doing them and then they repeat them. And I just saw a super cute video of like arguing with an Italian little girl and she's like this 4-year-old and she's like doing all the hand gestures like I want to stay up or whatever she's saying and she's like arguing her point. It's adorable. But yeah, I think that is something that TV is an amazing resource.
Yeah.
And I have an entire episode I did with someone a while back about using TV but like intentionally, like not just sitting back and like absorbing, but like active, like write down the things you've noticed and like try to pick up, kind of delving into it deeper. And she has a TV club where like a teacher, kind of like a host that's a teacher, will help you to like, what did we learn? And like, let's talk about the episode and then kind of weave the language into the story and what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much. I learned so much Polish through TV because you can get the culture. And I mean, it's so different than, especially if you can't travel. Like if you're not living there, podcasts are great, but you don't get the culture. You don't get
Yes.
the interaction. So,
Yes, but even if you live there, I mean, my mother, when they moved to Italy, it was in the late 50s, no, early 60s, and she didn't have the opportunity to learn the language in language classes. Nobody would
oh,
think about that nowadays. You have so many, but she learned most of her Italian thanks to the Italian TV,
hmm
and she observed a lot as well. So she tried to understand what they were talking about, also with the gestures, with the expression in the facial expressions and the body language, what it was about, and she was really good at that.
There's a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, it does help. It 100% helps when you do gestures versus don't. And like as Americans, we don't usually do many gestures. And I purposefully do in my classes to like make it easier. Like drink, I like pretend I have like a water glass in front of my mouth. And I've had students, they like are in my beginner and then they go to a more advanced class and they're like, the teacher doesn't like move. She doesn't like show us anything. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like she's not used to like being
Yeah.
like this mime of like showing everything I'm doing because I give like a lot of hints because my
Yeah.
students are very, very beginner. They're newly arrived, but it's super helpful. And I mean, a lot of Arabic cultures are very gestural as well, and it helps me so much. I'm like, oh, thank you. Like that gesture you did just helped so much for my understanding. Love it. Keep up
Yes.
the gestures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's just so much we could say. All right, I want to ask one more question before I forget about yourself learning languages because you know so many. Um, so when a language, for example, the German, the Swiss German, even Dutch, they're all very similar. Did you find that, and of course it's easy in a way, but did you have any struggles because they are so similar of like putting the wrong word in the wrong language or like were there struggles in that? Because as a Polish speaker, I wanted to learn some Ukrainian and I kind of gave up because I was like, it's too similar and I'm just spitting out Polish. I'm not able to like switch it slightly for the Ukrainian. It was like too difficult for me. So I'm just curious as someone who does speak these languages that are all very similar, how you kind of like car compartmentalize and like separate so that they don't
Mm.
mesh together too much.
Yes. So the German and Swiss German are very similar, but somehow I never struggled with those two because it's still, you know, the intonation is different and also the sounds. We also have the ch sound in German, but the ch
Hmm.
sound in Swiss German is slightly different. But what I struggled with was when I then learned Dutch
Hmm.
and I fully immersed into Dutch. And the first time we went to Switzerland, it was so funny because I went into a supermarket and I talked with the person and at some point she looked at me like, what are you saying? I just switched without even being aware of that to Dutch.
Oh, wow.
And I walked out. I said, oh my God, what is happening with me? I cannot even say a full sentence in Swiss German anymore. And I really was so embarrassed because my
Oh.
children were there with me. It's like, oh, mommy is going crazy. But I then took some time and I said, okay, this is what many people are describing when they say, oh, I learn a new language and I continuously mix it and I'm not even aware of doing it.
Hmm.
And I always said, oh, how can you not be aware of it? Now, then I knew.
Now you
So
understand.
I know how it feels and that it's really, yeah, upsetting also. And at some point then during those holidays, I really decided I have to switch off the Dutch really consciously and
Mm.
concentrate before I start talking in Swiss German. And it required really a lot of energy that I keep speaking Swiss German because I was constantly slipping into Dutch. Uh,
Yeah.
Really, at the beginning of the sentence, it was perfect Swiss German, and then all of a sudden, broop,
A
came the
word.
Dutch word because the intonation is similar, the pronunciation is similar, maybe the word was also similar. So after we stayed for 2 weeks, so I was very fortunate that we stood for longer.
Mm.
After 3 days or so, I was able to have a longer conversation in Swiss German, but it really required a lot of energy from me. And
Yeah.
as I said, I was a bit, yeah, scombussolata is the
Just
Italian word.
mixed up. You
I
were
was
like,
mixed up
yeah.
and it was new for me and I was embarrassed and I said, how can this happen to me that it never happened before?
Mm.
But that was something that happened to, but not the other way around. Funnily,
Oh,
it was not with Dutch. I never mixed it with Swiss German when I speak Dutch. So
interesting.
it's only with Swiss German and Dutch when I have to speak Swiss German.
That's,
And
yeah.
it's still sometimes when I'm tired or when I want to say something very quickly
Hmm.
in Swiss German, then the Dutch comes in. I have no idea why.
Yeah. I mean, I've had weird, like unexplainable why one language is coming into the other. So like um, I speak Polish. It's like an intermediate, like maybe B2 level. And
Mhm.
when I'm trying to speak in Arabic, rather than like English or French or like Spanish, Italian, any of these languages I speak better, a Polish word will come to my head and I'm like, that's not the right language. Like, why the Polish? Why? Like, it's so weird of like, it's like my brain knows like I'm searching for a
Yes.
different language and it's not one I'm comfortable in. So it like goes to like the other kind of like shaky language or I don't really know like why because like the other ones I'm like very competent and very comfortable and like those are my like weaker ones. But I'm like, why is the Polish word coming? And then I can't think like they're so different too. And I'm like, I can't like, why is this Pol? And it happens to me often where I'm like, I'm trying to make effort to speak in Arabic, and then I'm like, oh, Polish word, like, what is that in Arabic? And then my brain will go from Polish to English, like, okay, I need this word. Like I'll have it in the two, and then I'm like, what the heck is it? Like it's very weird. I don't know. Like the bilingual, multilingual brain is just
It's very
it's
weird because sometimes in some research they say yeah, it's the weaker language or the more dominant language that comes in depending on the situation, etc. But I don't think it's you can really clearly cut this in these
no,
two kind of
definitely.
situations because sometimes I have also words that come up that just come on the
Hmm.
surface and then out of my mouth before I even think about it and say why is it now in that language?
Hmm.
What happened here? And I sometimes have the impression that it's like a container with liquid, and then you have things floating, and there are
Hmm.
some words that are floating every now and then
They
they
get
just
mixed up.
come out.
Hmm.
You cannot filter them. Yeah, they just come out. And then the people you're talking with have to deal with this.
Yeah.
And you try to make sense of this
It's
situation that
funny.
happened.
I take it lightheartedly. I almost think when someone is monolingual and they're learning a second, of course, the dominant is the other, the language
Mhm.
they speak. Like that would be when you'd revert to your dominant. But I feel like with at least like your experience, my experience, it's like my brain knows I need a different word, not the one I'm like, not the language I'm using every day, and like it goes to
You go
a,
through.
a different language. Like not, it's never the English word for
Yeah.
me. Never. It's like always like I think of the Spanish word. Like I was in a different, I forget what podcast, I think a French one. And like the Spanish word came up and I was like, what? And she lived in Mexico. So I told her in Spanish and she was like, this is the word in French. And I was like, thank God, at least you speak Spanish. Cause I was like, my brain is like malfunctioning right now. Like I can't think of the right word.
Yes, but
And it's just unexplainable because my French is way better than my Spanish. So I'm like, why? Why?
yeah, I think these are just the perks of having different languages. But
Yeah,
I like to compare it also, when you call your children or you just say the wrong name, okay?
it's true.
And you say, I know your names and I know who you are, but still the other name is coming up for whatever reason.
Or the
It's
dog,
that
the cat.
kind of, yeah, oh, the dog. Yes. Oh my gosh. How many times have I called my children with my dog's name? It's really embarrassing. No, but, and that in those situations, it's really like the brain is going through the different facets of the
Hmm.
languages and tries to, by trial and error, of
Yeah.
course, the trial and error is also verbal, so everyone hears what you're going through if you say it out
Yeah.
loud. But sometimes I try to stay quiet until I find the right one, but maybe the pace of the conversation doesn't allow you to do this. So you try to put it out in that language, no, wrong.
Wrong
That
one.
language, no, wrong. Until it gets it right, or until the person you're speaking with says, oh, is this what you mean? And then you say, yeah, of course. Why
Yeah.
didn't I remember that? And
I
it
like
has
it. It's a
nothing to
perk.
do with age. It has nothing to
Yeah.
do with
Not at all.
the proficiency in the languages. I think sometimes it's just a mix.
It's the
You're
multilingual brain,
to
and
find the right piece, and it takes
yeah.
time. And in conversations, you usually don't have that time.
I mean, it happens even like fluent non-bilingual. My dad does not speak French, but he knows like 5 words, about as many words as I know in German. And he, for the life of him, can never remember the word mushroom. And he always says champignon. And he's like, I can't, what's the English for that? For champignon? And I'm like, Dad, you don't even speak French. Like, why can't you remember mushroom? Like, why is it always coming out champignon? Like, it happened
Mm.
multiple times to my dad, and he does not speak French. Like, he speaks Afrikaans, but he does not speak, and he hasn't spoke Afrikaans for probably like 50 years. But I don't know why. So it can happen, like, not about your level at all, because he knows bonjour, merci, champignon, like Mbappe, like those are his words. He does not know French.
It could be also that it's we have certain words that we find they sound nicer than the other ones. So
Yeah.
I can imagine that maybe champignon for him it sounds nicer. It
Hmm.
comes easier than mushroom
Yeah. And it
or
has a nice ring.
whatever. Yeah,
It
and
sounds
it
very
has
French and elegant.
yes, exactly.
It's funny. All right, can we switch to kind of on the same topic, but code switching, language mixing, and like, so it's kind of like what we're talking about now, where like a word comes in, but like, how do you see that as an expert working with multilingual families when a parent or parents come to you like, my kid keeps mixing their languages, they keep throwing in the wrong, they don't answer me in the right language. So that whole idea of code switching or language mixing, what's your
Mhm.
take on that?
Um, well, I always find that it's part of being multilingual anyways.
Hmm.
When it comes to code switching, so using a certain language with a person or in a certain situation, and the child does not switch to the language that is required. Let's say the parent wants the child to speak language yellow and the child speaks the language red, then maybe the child doesn't have the confidence or the vocabulary in the language yellow yet,
Hmm.
or needs even, like we just said in another context, doesn't have enough time to think about the words and to form the sentences in a way to really participate in the conversation. So that's one thing where I say, okay, is it because the child cannot speak the language yet. Depends also on the age, the
Skill.
situation, and everything, and the pace of the conversation and the communication setting. So there are many questions that I usually have, and then at some point you figure out, or you find out what the child really needs. And very often it is really about the child being more confident and being exposed to situations where they can use the target language in a safe way,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of at their own pace, with their choice of words that can also be wrong words, okay, grammatically not correct,
Mm-hmm.
but that the parents need also to always consider, is it now worth it that I correct every single mistake, or is
Mm-hmm.
it better that I let my child finish the sentence or what they want to say, and then maybe model how to say it grammatically correct? Or is the child even receptive for this at the moment, or
Right.
is it really the right moment? Sometimes you are in the middle of a group of people. You are
Mm-hmm.
certainly not going to correct your child in front of peers or other people.
Yeah.
So it
Such a good
pretty
point.
much, it pretty much depends on the situation. And usually I ask them then many questions to figure out what are the particular situations where the child is hesitating or
Mm-hmm.
even refusing to speak the target language. There are always reasons.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just because they're tired, or because they are thinking about what they want to say in the other language because they were just experiencing it in the other language. And
Right.
then
Like after school, their
exactly,
brain is still in the school
absolutely.
language. Like it's
Yeah.
really hard to switch that
Yeah.
brain or, if,
I When I was a child, I remember that when I played with my Italian friends or the French friends, and then came home, and my mom would ask me, "Yeah, how was your day and what did you do, etc." I just didn't want to switch to German, and I couldn't because it was still all very active in the other language. And she said, "I just gave you like an hour to arrive
hmm
home and into the language, and then when you were ready you could share with me." My sister was completely different. She would just switch
Yeah.
and talk all the time. So I was fine. You take the first hour and then I can chime in. But this for the code switching, for the code mixing, when
Sorry,
you
but what you said, I just want to highlight is so important that your kid and other kid can be so different. And like you have to also know your child. Like, does your child need more time? Does your child like just need some time after they wake up or come home from school or want to be alone before bed or do they want to talk, right? Like knowing the personality is
Mhm.
so important, right? I don't want to take away or like make you forget what you were gonna say. The
No,
code
no,
switching.
no, that's so true. Yes, to know also how the children work and how they use these different languages, and
Yeah.
sometimes they need a little bit more time to switch from one to the other, because it's not only switching from the language to the other, it's also switching from your thoughts, from all the context into the
hmm
other, and sometimes from culture to culture. That's
Yeah.
also not easy, because the way we share something in one language is not the way we share something in the other.
Very true.
So it's a whole shift that is happening. It's not only language. Yes, but about language mixing, that is when you mix a word from another language into the sentence of the the base language or the matrix language that you're using in that kind of context. And that can happen at so different levels, at the phonological level, at the
hmm
lexical level. So it's a word, or uh, even syntactical level, so that you put maybe the adjective in another place than it
Yeah.
should be in that language. And then
But it
people say,
could be
oh,
correct for the other language, like Spanish,
exactly.
French, Italian. It would be, after car blue, and like English, it should be blue
Blue.
car. And like, well, which language am I following the syntax, the order of? Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yes. And there it's important to know what other languages the child knows, because if the teacher, for example, doesn't know that the child also speaks French or Italian, and the child says, "I want the car blue," they
hmm
think, "Oh, the child is not understanding the simple structure of
hmm
English language." But if they know that the child also speaks maybe French or Italian, then they
Yeah.
would understand it's just they are using the syntax structure of their other language and try to make it fit and
hmm
work. Um,
My son, he used to, when he was a very small baby, he would ask what that is, because that's the Polish instead of what is that? What that is. And I was like, oh, it's so cute, but yeah, like doesn't sound natural. So there's lots of things where like they translate word for word. Their
yes,
brain is right still in that first, whatever the dominant language or the first language or one of the languages, depending on the case.
yes, absolutely. And it's a trial and error. And sometimes it's really about understanding what the child wants to say
Hmm.
and then maybe correct. But it's not something to worry about unless the child really cannot be understood absolutely by anyone.
Right.
So if, for example, they would use only adjectives and they don't understand that there are nouns and what nouns actually mean. I mean, we are talking now metalinguistically, but if
Right.
someone would say the blue, yellow, red, you say
Yeah.
what?
What? It
Without
makes no
saying
sense.
car or cup or whatever. If
Yeah.
it's not making sense, then these are little signs to have a look at what is going on.
Yeah, and I mean, even I wonder if it's conscious or unconscious, right? Some kids it might be a conscious thing.
Mhm.
Even this morning, my daughter, I was like, "What did you eat for breakfast?" I asked her in Polish, "What did you eat?" And she was like, "I don't know." Then she would just in Polish answer me, "I don't know." And I was like, "You don't know, or are you like playing with me?" Right? Like she just didn't want to. It was like a game. Like I'm not gonna tell you. And I was like, well, "Just tell me. Like why? What's this game?" So it's also like this control, and like she had a period where she wasn't speaking at daycare, and again, it was a control, and like she would point, and they were like, "Why isn't she speaking?" And it was like, again, like for her, I think it was more like I'm gonna control what I say when I say it. So yeah, I see with her, like, and I know that about her personality. She's 6. She's got quite a personality. It's yeah, like when she wanted to, she finally told me she had something kind of weird for it was gołąbki, which are like those cabbage rolls, and I was like, for breakfast, so it was like they were like, why don't you want to tell me? Is it something weird? So then there was this whole like conversation about why did you have gołąbki for breakfast? But in any case, like there was this game aspect and like she was totally like knowing what she was doing, right? Versus like a kid who maybe is unconsciously doing something and like they don't even realize there's this
Yeah.
whole like confusion or two things going on in their brain. So you're kind
Yes.
of like a detective. You're like figuring out, asking the parents lots of questions like when does it happen? What situations? With whom? How often?
Yes.
That's really, yeah, sounds kind of like a detective fun job.